Welcome everyone to this Let's Play of Kerbal Space Program Release 1.0. Now, I did say in the previous episode that I had a little surprise for you. So let's pop in and see Gene and find out what that surprise is. Now, Gene has been working very hard over the past week to get us contracts, and he's identified a new agent, Kerbal Aero Testing Services, and their remit is to build and fly aircraft for testing purposes. Now, this is their first contract, and it is to fly their first aircraft. Now, to do that, we need to build and fly that aircraft for 5 minutes to prove it's airworthy, and then land it in one piece. So we will need a crew, of which one must be a pilot. We will need a Weasley basic jet engine. We will need to fly that vessel for 5 minutes somewhere over Kerbin, and then we will need to get the aircraft down safely on the runway. We'll get 11,000 funds for building it, 15,000 funds and a little bit of science and reputation for completing, and in the unlikely event that we fail, we will lose funds and lose reputation. So let's head on over to the spaceplane hangar and build that first plane. So into this rather empty spaceplane hangar, let's put a Mark 1 cockpit. That's going to be, I think, Val. Val should be the one to do our aircraft missions. Let's get, what should we get next? I think we should have some science. We should try and get some science while we're out. So let's get the standard sort of science package going. So what else do we need? We need a service bay, so let's put that on there and we'll rotate it so that we're not interfering with the wings that we put on. So what I think we will do is just rotate that through 90 degrees. Now, there's different ways of doing this, and we could place it, rotate it, but let's use the rotate gizmo. Let's click on that part, and then we can grab the green ring and just rotate it round. There we go, 90 degrees. Excellent. So that's now 90 degrees rotated. So if we open it up, it should open top and bottom. And what we're going to do is go into structural, and we will fit, come on, in you go, there we go. We will fit our rather oversized girder, but using the tweak scale tool, in you go, we will reduce that down to 50% size. Fits perfectly in the bay now. So next, let's go and get from our science parts, there we go, the magnetometer. Let's put that in. Now we're going to have to put it in facing down. Whoops. Let's get down underneath, and then we're just going to rotate it back up. So let's just put that in like so. Is that vertical? Yes, it is. So now we can use the rotate tool again. Click on the rotate gizmo, and then you can just see it there. So let's grab and turn that round. That's too far. There we go. So is that right? So now it should come out of the top there. Yes, that should be fine. So that gets that in there. It's a little bit offset, but what we can do for that is we can choose the offset tool, click our part, and then we can just grab the handle and position it where we like. Now that's snapping, and that's still snapped not quite center. So if we turn off the angle snap, we can now just slide this part back and forth to whatever position we like. That looks pretty central to me. See where the red arrow goes through the center of the cross there. That's close enough. So let's get back into normal place mode. Close that. So that's our magnetometer safely stored. Oops. Right, now what else? We can get mystery goo. Let's get a couple of mystery goo here on the nose. Get angle snap back on again. So let's get a couple of those onto the nose like so. And then we don't want a comms DTS, we want a too hot thermometer, and we'll put a couple of those either side of the cockpit. What do you think, boys? It's going okay? Is this going okay? Yeah? Excellent. Right. What next? Well, we need some fuel. Jet engines are pretty efficient, so we won't need much. And finally, let's put the engine on the end. Now, there's our Weasley jet engine. So that's the main fuselage of our craft. I don't think we will be needing anything else on the fuselage other than our standard Kerbal engineering system, which we shall squeeze in. Let's squeeze it in. Let's squeeze it in underneath. There we go, out of the way, like so. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. Right, now, wings. What are we going to use for wings? We've got a fair selection of wings. We've got the large structural type, but just for simplicity, we will go for these swept wings. We've got a pair of those. Put those on. We'll worry about adjusting their position a little bit later. Let's get ourselves a tail fin. We only need one of those, so let's slip that on the back. Get it as far back as we can. There we go. Shouldn't interfere then with the bay. So that's looking okay. Next we need our elevons. Put some elevons on the ends here. So we need two. Get back to two. Like so. Can we use our rotate tool? Should we use our rotate tool? There we go. That's the rotate. Now the offset tool. Just bring it along and then probably... Oh no, that's fine. That should be just fine, I think. Yep, I think that should be fine. That should be fine. Right, now, tail fin. Tail fins? No, tail... there we go. What are we going to use for tail? We haven't actually got any tail. We've got winglets. We've got the large delta wings. We could try those, but I think they're going to be a bit too big. A bit too big. So perhaps we will do without these delta wings here at the back. Is that going to be too big? They look rather large, don't they? They look rather large. Let's see where our centre of mass and our centre of lift are. See, centre of lift is a long way back. So we're probably going to have to move that. But let's not forget the rest of our parts before we worry too much about that. We'll need some air intakes. Now for air intakes, where are they? Where are air intakes? Here we go, air intakes. We'll put those on the cheeks like so. That looks okay. So on the cheeks like so. We'll tidy those up in a moment. And some utility wheels. So again, let's get the utility wheels on. Is that their level? We'll come back and centre those or position those correctly a little bit later. And finally, let's squeeze in just one wheel here at the nose, just there. Now you notice that's a little bit lower down than these wheels, so the nose of the plane will be slightly up on the runway, giving us a little bit of a head start on getting off the rather rickety runway we have at the moment. Right, so I think we need to look at a few more bits and pieces. Now those bits and pieces are going to include parachutes. Now why parachutes? Well, we're going to have to land, and my landing skills aren't great. So I think we're going to need a little bit of help in case we need to land vertically. So let's get some parachutes on, and I think what we're going to do is just put one underneath as well. Now the reason I'm doing that is because these will be used to drop us vertically onto the ground should that prove necessary. And this one will act as a drogue chute when we're landing on our rather rough runway. So, yeah, I think that'll do. Okay, so I think that is all the parts we need. We need to sort out our staging. So let's get our engine into its own stage and get our drogue chute. Which will probably need separately. So let's get that organised separately. Okay, this is looking good. Right, now next we need to make sure our centre of mass and centre of lift are positioned accordingly. Now that's quite a long way behind our centre of mass, so let's use our offset tool on the wings and just snap them forward until, there we go, that's pretty good. Pretty good, but you'll notice right here at the front, let's get right down here, there's this kind of little sticky outy bit. So what we'll do is we'll push them in. So let's just push them in, there we go, snapped in, so they now meet nice and neatly with the cockpit, and we'll do the same for the radial intakes. We'll click on the radial intakes and just snap them in a little, there we go, so that they meet a little bit more neatly with, meet a little bit more neatly with the front of the aircraft. Looks a little bit prettier now. A little bit prettier. We've still got a very good alignment of our centre of mass and centre of lift. So what else do we need to do? Well, we don't need any oxidizer. So let's sort out the oxidizer. We don't need any of that because we're not going into space, so that's just waste weight. Same for monopropellant in the cockpit. We're not going to use any of that, so that's just waste. And of course we will need a decent pilot. So sorry Jeb, as much as you are a great pilot of rockets, Valentina is going to be our plane pilot. So there we go, that looks pretty good. Yeah, we've got a little bit of the wing clipping in there, so perhaps we could have a go at just fixing that before we finish. Let's go back to the offset tool and snap the air intakes forward a little. Is that okay? Just a smidgen of wing appearing just there. And you know, I don't know, I think I actually preferred it back a little. So let's just snap it back one. Do you actually prefer that? I know you can see the wing through there, but nah, that's good enough. That's good enough. Well, if it's good enough for Valentina, get the camera right. If it's good enough for Valentina, it's good enough for me. So let's recap. We have our wings and rudder, tail fins all positioned. We could do with checking whether our elevons are set correctly. So elevons should be roll. Then we have our winglets for pitch and our rudder for yaw. So let's just set those. So that's now done. We have our one Weasley engine, which we require for the contract. We have our one pilot. We have some science attached. I don't think we missed out on any science. We've got goo. The orbital telescope's not that much useful to us at the moment. So we've got our magnetometer in here, science bay, thermometer, and mystery goo. And some fuel, wheels, and underneath our Kerbal engineering system. So let's name this as our first aircraft. Save it. And head on out to our rather rickety runway. See you in a moment. Well, our runway doesn't look in a particularly good state, just a dirt, rather bumpy dirt track as it is at the moment, but let's see how our contract is going to pan out. So we need at least one pilot in the crew. We have Valentina Kerman. We need a basic jet engine, which we have right here at the back. We need to fly our vessel, which we're not doing quite yet, but we need to fly it for 5 minutes. And eventually we need to get the aircraft back down safely on this runway. Now the runway is actually a biome, and we'll come back to that in another episode. But for the time being, we just need to get this thing off the ground. So let's get the SAS on, let's get the throttle up, ready for takeoff, and let's go. Brakes off, and see if we can get this thing in the air. Now, hopefully it will be well balanced and have a lot of lift, so it should just pick up. There we go, and our counter has started counting down. So we are flying KATS' first aircraft. Brilliant. So we just got to stay in the air for just over 4 minutes 45 seconds. But I thought rather than just stay around round and round the runway, we'd actually go and do a bit of science. And perhaps we'll go and do a bit of science out here in the mountain range. So let's take our time, and we've got 4 and a bit minutes to go, just to pop over to the mountains. And that's I kind of had this in mind, and this is a reason why I had the parachutes fitted to the top of the plane, because we should then be able to make a very short landing somewhere in the mountains after the timer runs out. There we go, at 4 minutes. So after it runs out, and as a result get some science while we're up here. Then we've just got to make it back to our dirt strip. So I think Val's very happy to be in the air. Our first pilot piloting our first plane for the KATS agency. Now we've got a little bit of a valley through here, or we've got the K2 mountain here. So what I think we'll do is we'll go through this sort of valley and then around along the range and see if we can find somewhere to land. We're at 3.5 kilometers up, just below the clouds. That's going to prove a little bit awkward. So let's get above the cloud layer and just follow along the rooftop of the mountain range. Got some science we could be getting. We've got a crew report which we can get from grasslands, I think this is going to be. Kerbal Highlands gives us 3.5, but we'll get some in the mountains as well. So I'm going to keep the materials bay, but we've got 2 thermometers, so we can take one for 5.6 science, so we'll take one of them. And let's just start our turn around the mountain. So we've got just under 2.5 minutes, so we're halfway through our contracted time period. Hopefully the guys back at base are monitoring our progress. It's a very agile first ship. Very, very agile. Clouds building up over the top of the mountains here, so let's just start our turn along the mountains. We probably don't need to be at quite such a high thrust, save a little bit of fuel. Also run off a bit of the clock. We've got just over 90 seconds, 100 seconds to go. So we should be completing that part of our contract very shortly and successfully. So let's look at, this looks quite rough here. Don't fancy landing there, maybe along this ridge up here. More science, let's see where we are. Let's use the temperature scan. Oh, there we go. Mountains. We could do another temperature scan in the mountains, or we could wait till we've landed. Let's wait till we've landed. So we are in the mountains biome now, so we could actually drop down here, but I suspect that's quite steep. Maybe that's a plateau there, but that looks a bit too rough. But I'm liking the looks of either here or here. That looks quite smooth. Mountains are smooth. So let's head out here. So 42 seconds to go. K2 mountain here, is it? Don't think we'll be landing quite on there, not in this aircraft. That looks quite flat. Flat top here. Yes, let's try somewhere along this ridge here. Timer will be running out in 15 seconds. So I think we have proved this craft is airworthy, just as the mountain comes through the top of the clouds there. So let's lose a little bit of altitude and aim for somewhere here. Yeah, somewhere here. Now we're probably not going to find anywhere flat enough simply to land, hence the parachutes. So there we go, timer has run out. We have successfully tested our aeroplane in flight. So our time is now hours. We can collect some science somewhere down here. Oh, the fog's the fog is coming in. So we're going to have to get down a little bit lower beneath the fog. Let's reduce thrust quite a bit now. We're still in the mountain biome. Another, if you could hear that, another plane rushing by. Now, oh, we're getting in. It looks smooth enough, but a bit rocky. So let's see if we can't kill our engines here with a bit of a stall and put her down somewhere here. So let's get parachutes out, engine off. Let's really stall it back. And now we're coming straight down. Let's get our brakes on, ready for whatever we land on. It looks a bit of a slope. There are trees down there. Is that trees? Boulders, trees. That's our shadow. Not sure which way it's sloping. I'm not looking forward to this. 10 meters a second. That's going to be a bit harsh. I think it's sloping this way. So let's go sideways onto the slope, so we don't start rolling. So we've got just under 100 meters, 75 meters. It's not so bad. I think we're going to be okay. Going to hit quite hard. Ouch. But we're down. So much for being across the slope. We are down. We are successfully down. Let's shut down the engine and take a look around. Okay, so Valentina is now ready to do her science. So let's start with our second temperature scan. Only 2.4 science, but we will keep it. We'll take the mystery goo observation for further 3 science. Yeah. Looks happy to be back on solid ground, and so do you. Yes, we are happy to be safely down. So let's keep that. Let's do... did it keep that? Oh, we did. That was a mystery goo. So that's our mystery goo tag. We need the materials bay. So we'll take that for 7.5 science. So let's keep that. Now for the magnetometer scan, let's open the bay. And hopefully it's facing in the right direction. There we go. Just misses the tail fin. 1.5 science. So it's hardly an overpowered science tool. Strong magnetic field suggests that you may have stumbled upon one of Kerbin's mythic magnetic mountains. Not for 1.5 science we haven't, so let's keep that and then retract the magnetometer. Now we'll take a crew report whilst we are on Kerbin's mountains for 1.5 science, and finally let's do an EVA. So let's get the EVA report whilst flying, and it is cold and windy, but we get 5.6 science for that. So let's board and make sure Valentina is safely in position. So I think with everything sorted bar return to the KSC, we should point ourselves in a downward direction and get cracking. So let's close up the science. Let's get the brakes off, the engine activated. Let's face downhill, throttle up, T-key on. And this is actually a bit smoother than our own runway. And let's get up, take advantage of that little bit of a slope, and start on our return back to the KSC. So this is the last part of our contract we need to satisfy, which is landed at the runway, and rather than have a very long journey home... Oh, we forgot to close up the bay. Let's close that now. So rather than you having a rather long journey home, I will see you back on our final approach. See you in a moment. Well, you join us back on our final approach, and the aircraft appears to have developed a bit of a fault. The temperature of the gear seems to be heating up quite rapidly. Obviously, heat is rushing through from the engine to affect the landing gear, so we're going to have to get down pretty sharpish. So we are on a pretty good approach. We're running a little bit fast, so let's bleed off some of that speed. Let's do a bit of a stall maneuver just to bring that velocity down. Hopefully our overheating gear will survive. It's 160 odd degrees. It'll explode if it gets up near 700, so we've got to get home pretty sharpish. Now whilst we are on our approach, I think it might be worth pointing out that the contracts that I am going to be developing are being developed with the Contract Configurator tool, and it's quite a good tool. It's very easy to use. It is allowing me to create contracts very similar to those that come in the stock game, but add around it a little bit of role play so that we can put a bit into the text, a bit into the comments, into the purpose of each contract, just to give us a little more to do. Now I've got a few ideas. For example, dropping probes to act as weather stations, for example, or science stations, pollution monitors and so on. Those might be quite good contracts if I can find a way of monitoring or measuring that I've actually successfully dropped a probe. There are also testing parts under extreme conditions, such as flying very fast or in a very specific altitude window, those sorts of things. But if you've got any suggestions, please do feel free to write them into the comments, and I'll see what I can do. Now in the meantime, let's concentrate on Valentina's predicament. The gear is now up to 172, but it does seem to be cooling down a little. I think having come down into the lower atmosphere, perhaps the thicker air is now conducting away some of that additional temperature. So hopefully whatever bugette that was in the build will no longer be affecting us. The more difficult part is going to be getting down onto the darn runway. So let's just double check how our contract is going. We've just got to get down, landed on the biome known as the runway. So it's a little bit rough. So we are going to have to go as slow as possible. So let's just drop the throttle right down. Let's bleed off a little bit more speed as we come in across this rather rickety runway. And we're going to have to try and come in as low and as slow as possible. So it's going to take a little bit of concentration. Going a little bit across, we're at 200 meters. We're going to be a little bit to the right, but hopefully we can run up and onto the runway at the last second. So 64. Keep up. Come on. You can do it. Maybe we'll land on this little bit here. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to get down and then roll up onto the runway. So let's just come back up the side of the runway here. This is so much cheating, but we're getting there. So we are now on the runway. Let's get the brakes on, kill the engine and hit our parachute. There we go. Fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Well, that's kind of cheating, but given the state of the gear and given the state of the runway, I think we did absolutely brilliantly. Well done, Valentina. Absolutely brilliant on flying the agency's first aircraft. We had a crew, we had the jet engine, we flew for 5 minutes, got some science and made it safely back to the runway. So let's go and see the summary of the mission that Valentina has just flown. So Valentina did a very good job there. We got plenty of science. We got 27.2 science, now a total of 54, which is enough for one more unlock of science in the science building. We got crew reports, EVAs, mysterial studies, magnetometer scans and so on. Excellent, well done Valentina, excellent, well done. We recovered all of our parts bar our fuel, and obviously we had 3 unpacked parachutes, so those will have to be repaired by the boys back in the lab. Gained 16,000 funds from those recovered parts, giving us a lot of funds which we will now be able to spend upgrading the runway. We got Valentina back for 1 additional XP, and of course let's check out our custom mission for the KATS agency, which was to build the agency's first aircraft, which we successfully flew. We got a further 15,000 funds, 1 science and 2 reputation. So my fear of aircraft is still in the bag. We've got plenty of missions yet to fly. So with that in mind, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.